All right, so are you ready? Today was to take a deep dive into the world of house flipping. Buying those fixer-uppers, giving them a makeover you only dream about, and then boom, watching all those offers come rolling in. But we're going deeper than just like what you see on TV. This deep dive is all about giving you the real scoop, the inside info, so you can decide if this crazy, fast-paced real estate thing is even for you.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting is, like, house flipping has become this phenomenon, but it's actually a legit investment strategy. And we're not going to try to, turn you into a pro overnight or anything, but we are going to break it all down. And we found this awesome podcast that's like entirely focused on this stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we're talking that mysterious 70% rule everyone's always talking about.
Yeah.
And the types of properties that'll make you run for the hills. But first, like, what is it about flipping houses that's so appealing?
Well, I think it's a quick turnaround. Unlike, traditional real estate that can tie your money up for years, this is way faster. You're buying, fixing up, and then selling all in, like a really short amount of time.
So faster money.
Basically, yeah, you could say that.
Okay. And I bet there's got to be like a lot of satisfaction seeing it transform.
Oh, absolutely. It's creative, it's a lot of work, but so satisfying to take something, run down and make it beautiful.
Yeah.
And it could even boost the whole neighborhood.
Awesome. So we got profit potential, you get to be creative, and maybe even help out the community. But let's be real, this isn't a walk in the park. What kind of person, what are the skills and personality to be good at this?
Well, first you really got to understand the basics of real estate, like how much a house is really worth, spotting potential problems, all those complicated ins and outs of buying and selling.
So it's not just like picking out paint colors and stuff.
Definitely not. You also need to be good with money. Budgeting, Figuring out if you'll actually make a profit. Managing the money, especially when something unexpected happens. And it always does.
Uh-oh. So does that mean I need to know, like, the difference between a hammer and a screwdriver?
Well, it wouldn't hurt. The more you know about construction, the better. Or at least be able to figure out what needs to be done and how to manage the contractors. But maybe even more important, you got to be okay with taking risks.
Yeah, because I'm sure nothing ever goes exactly to plan.
You got it. Delays happen, hidden problems pop up, and the market can just change like that. You got to be able to adapt, think on your feet, and make, good decisions under pressure.
Sounds intense. Okay,
Yeah.
So you got to be creative, business-minded, and a little bit of a gambler. Now, our source kept saying over and over how important networking is. What's that all about?
It's all about building your team, people you can trust, professionals.
Like your own A-team for real estate.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So who do you absolutely need on your team?
Mentors, especially when you're first starting out, they've been there, done that, and can teach you things you won't find anywhere else. Then there's the contractors. These guys are the backbone of the whole renovation. You got to find people who are good at what they do, who are honest, who work within your budget, and who can, actually get the work done on time. And don't forget the real estate agents.
Right, the ones who work their magic when it's time to sell.
Yes. A good agent who really understands house flipping. They can be your secret weapon to get the best price.
So yeah, finding the right agent is key. Now, what about finding the best place to do this? Location, location, location. How do you find the perfect market and the perfect property to flip?
Okay, well, before you get carried away with, imagining the perfect kitchen and bathrooms, you got to take a step back and look at the market. You want a place where houses are, increasing in value, where there are a lot of people who want to buy, and a good amount of properties that actually make sense for flipping. Think about things like job growth, how many people are moving to the area, and stuff that buyers really want, like parks and restaurants and things.
That makes sense. Now, our source mentioned some websites, Zillow, Redfin, and Realtor.com. How do those help?
Those are amazing for finding data. They've got info on how much houses are worth, how much houses have recently sold for, and just the overall trends in a certain area. So you can get a really good idea of what's happening in a specific place. And you can pinpoint, those hidden gems, the places with the most potential.
Okay, awesome. But it's not just about finding a hot market, right? There are things to watch out for, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Stay away from places where house prices are going down.
Okay.
Places with high crime. And this is a big one. Areas with way too many other flippers.
Too many flippers.
Yeah, if everyone's trying to do the same thing in one place, it can actually make prices go down. And then it's harder to make a profit. You got to find that sweet spot. A place with potential, but not a feeding frenzy.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the actual property, what are you looking for?
You want a house with good bones.
Good bones.
Yeah, structurally sound, even if it's cosmetically a mess. Look for places in good locations with like, a good layout, lots of light, and a decent yard.
Okay, and of course we got to talk about that 70% rule.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Could you break that down for us?
It's basically a rule to help you figure out the most you should pay. So the rule says you shouldn't pay more than 70% of what the house will be worth after you fix it up, minus the cost of, all those renovations.
Got it. So how do you know what it'll be worth after it's fixed up?
That's where the market research comes in. You got to look at similar houses in the area, the ones that recently sold, ones that are like the same size and have similar features and are in similar condition to what yours will be after you fix it up.
Okay, so let's say I find that similar houses in the area are selling for like $300,000.
Okay, so that would be your after repair value, your ARV. So using the 70% rule, you shouldn't pay more than $210,000 for the property, which is 70% of that $300,000. But then you have to minus the cost of renovations.
So if, I think the renovations will be like $40,000. That means I shouldn't pay you $170,000 for the house.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can see how that would keep you from, overpaying and losing money.
Yeah,
Now, are there like some houses that are just a bad idea for flipping?
definitely. While cosmetic stuff like old kitchens and bathrooms are easy to fix, big structural problems or foundation issues are a nightmare. Those can be crazy expensive to fix and eat away at all your profit.
Yikes. So it's better to walk away from a deal that has like hidden damage, right?
Most of the time, yeah. Stick to properties with good bones that just need some cosmetic love to really increase their value.
All right, so we found our fixer-upper. It's got good bones. It's in a good location. And now comes the fun part, right?
Well, almost. Before you start picking out, like, cabinet finishes and stuff,
Yeah.
we got to talk about the money.
Oh, right, because flipping a house isn't exactly like buying groceries.
No, not at all. Getting the right financing is super important, but the good news is there are more ways to do that than ever before.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when I was reading through all this stuff. It's not just like getting a regular mortgage anymore.
Nope. There are tons of options these days, each with, pros and cons. But let's start with the traditional way, the good old mortgage.
Mhm.
These are the ones you get from like a bank or a credit union, and they usually have lower interest rates.
Which is good, right?
Yeah, tough, but I've heard they can be harder to actually get. Yeah, that's true. They usually want you to have like a really good credit score, and they want you to put more money down up front, which can be tough, especially if you're just starting out. And then the whole approval process can take forever, which isn't great when you're trying to, move quickly.
Yeah, I bet. So what if you need to move fast?
Yeah.
What are the other options?
Well, that's where hard money loans come in. These are usually from private lenders. And yeah, they have higher interest rates, but they're so much faster.
Yeah.
And they don't have as many requirements.
So it's like you trade speed and flexibility for higher cost.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But it sounds like they could be good if you need to act fast.
For sure. Now, our source also mentioned using, your own money or using the equity in your home.
Oh, right. So you're not like taking on more debt.
Right. Which is a good thing, especially if you have the money. But you got to be careful because you're putting your own stuff on the line if the project goes south.
Yeah, that's a little scary. Now, what about this private money thing? I'm not really sure I understand that.
So private money is basically loans from like individual investors or groups, people who are, looking to make money in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
These loans can be good for flippers because they have easier terms and you can get approved faster than a regular bank loan.
So it's like having your own group of investors.
Kind of, yeah. But
Okay.
you got to really check out these private lenders, make sure they're legit, and make sure you understand everything in the loan agreement. Interest rates can be all over the place.
Yeah.
And some of them will want a piece of the profits when you sell.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, got to do your homework. Now, there was one other thing our source talked about that I thought was really interesting. Joint ventures. What are those?
So joint ventures are when you team up with someone else. It could be another person or like a company. You put your money and resources together and you share, the risks and the rewards of the flipping.
So you're like partners.
Exactly.
Okay, so that sounds like a good way to use someone else's expertise.
Totally. Like if you're not so good at construction or marketing, you could find a partner who's good at that stuff. Or if you can't get enough money on your own, a partner can help with that.
That makes sense. But I'm guessing there are some downsides too.
Oh, yeah, of course. When you partner with someone, you got to share control. So you really got to pick the right people, make sure you communicate well, and you got to have a really good legal agreement that spells out, who does what and how the profits get split.
So it's like any relationship. It's all about communication and trust.
Exactly.
Okay, so now we've got a handle on like all the different ways to pay for a flip. But now comes the dreaded budget. This is where I think a lot of new flippers get into trouble.
Yeah, you're right. Making a realistic budget and actually sticking to it is like the most important part of a successful flip. And it's where a lot of new people mess up. They don't think about all the costs, or they get hit with unexpected expenses and, suddenly they're losing money.
Yikes.
Oh.
So how do you avoid that? What's the secret to like budgeting like a pro?
Okay, well, first of all, you got to think about all the costs, not just the price of the house.
Yeah.
So that includes the renovations, obviously, but also stuff like permits, closing costs, and how much it costs to just own the house while you're fixing it up. Oh, and real estate agent commissions when you sell?
Yeah, it's easy to forget about all that stuff.
Totally. That's why you also need a contingency fund, extra money, just in case something unexpected happens, which it almost always does.
Okay, like a safety net.
Exactly.
So how much extra money should you have?
A good rule is 10%, 20% of your total budget. Trust me, you'll be glad you have that extra cash when you find like a hidden plumbing problem or something.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, now I'm excited to talk about the renovations themselves,
Yeah.
taking that ugly house and making it gorgeous.
Me too. But before we go crazy with, granite countertops and stuff, we got to think strategically. It's all about getting the most bang for your buck, not just creating your dream home.
So I shouldn't like put in a pizza oven just because I love pizza.
Oh, probably not. You want to make something that most people will love. So focus on the things that really make a difference to buyers.
Like what?
Like kitchens and bathrooms. Everyone wants a beautiful kitchen and bathroom. And don't forget about curb appeal. That first impression when people see the house from the street is super important.
Got to have that wow factor, right?
Exactly. Now, here's a tip. Stick with neutral colors and classic styles. You want to create a space that feels clean and inviting, something that lets buyers imagine themselves living there. You don't want anything too bold or crazy, because not everyone will like that.
So no, like bright pink walls.
Probably not a good idea. Remember, you're not designing for yourself, you're designing for the market. And here's another important thing our source mentioned. Don't over-renovate.
Wait, what? Isn't the goal to make it like as amazing as possible?
Well, yeah, but you want to meet the market, You don't want to go way overboard. Like if you put in super expensive stuff in a neighborhood where people are expecting more like mid-range stuff, you might not get that money back when you sell.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So don't go too crazy with like fancy upgrades.
Right. Do your research, figure out what buyers in that area actually want, and then, renovate accordingly.
Okay, so we've got the money figured out. We've made our budget. We've got a renovation plan. What's next?
Now it's time to show it off to the world.
I'm ready for those open houses and offers.
Yeah, but we're not quite there yet. We still got to market and sell this thing, and that's where a good real estate agent really comes in handy.
So we've talked about so much like analyzing those potential markets to, making a budget that won't make you lose sleep.
Yeah.
But even if you plan everything perfectly, stuff happens, right?
Oh, absolutely. Flipping houses is definitely not always easy. It's not all, pretty open houses and people fighting over your property. There are always challenges and things that can go wrong, even for like the pros. And knowing how to handle that stuff can make all the difference.
Yeah, real life is not like those TV shows. So what are some of those challenges that can like really mess things up?
Well, one thing that happens a lot, even to experienced flippers, is finding hidden problems during renovations. Our source talked a lot about this, like bad wiring, plumbing issues, or even structural damage, stuff you didn't see during the inspection.
Oh man, and that can really blow your budget and your timeline,
Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure. And then there's all the stuff you just can't control. Permits getting delayed, contractors not being available, or even like crazy weather. All that can push things back and cost you more money.
That's when that contingency fund comes in handy, right?
Exactly. That extra money can really save you when those things happen. But even with that, you got to be ready for the market to change too.
Oh, right, because the real estate market is unpredictable.
Totally.
So what happens when the market, takes a dip?
Well, that's just something else flippers need to think about. The market goes up and down. And things like interest rates and how many people are buying can really affect how much money you make.
So even if you did a perfect job renovating and marketing, you could still have trouble selling if, like, suddenly nobody's buying houses.
Yeah, that's the risk you take with any investment. There are things you just can't control, and that's why our source really emphasized being flexible and, emotionally tough.
So it's not just about design and numbers. You got to be able to roll with the punches and like adjust to whatever happens.
Exactly. The best flippers are the ones who can change their plans, make smart decisions when things are crazy, and just stay focused on the goal even when it gets tough.
I like that. Okay, so speaking of making mistakes, what are some of the biggest mistakes that new flippers make? I'm sure we've all seen those shows where, it's a total disaster.
Oh, yeah, there are definitely some classic Ricky mistakes. One of the biggest is paying too much for the property. They get excited about a deal and end up paying way more than they should, and that, eats into their profit right away.
It's like those impulse buys at the store.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's so important to remember that 70% rule. Do your research, figure out what the house is really worth, and don't get caught up in a bidding war and, pay too much. Another common mistake is going overboard on the renovations.
You mean like putting in super fancy stuff when it's not really necessary?
Right. It's about, meeting what the market expects, not going way beyond that. Like we talked about before, if you put in really expensive things in a neighborhood where people aren't looking for that, you won't get that money back when you sell.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then, of course, there's the classic underestimating costs and timelines.
Yeah, I can see how that would be stressful.
Definitely. That's why having a good budget and realistic timelines is so important. Our
Yeah.
source was really clear about not rushing into things without, really planning everything out.
So patience is key.
Absolutely. Take your time to research, look at different properties, get your financing in order, and plan your renovations. If you rush into it without doing all that, you can make some expensive mistakes.
Awesome advice. Well, that's our deep dive into house flipping. It can be exciting, sometimes a little crazy, and definitely always interesting.
Yeah.
We talked about the good stuff, the bad stuff, and all the steps involved in taking a house from like a fixer-upper to something amazing.
And hopefully making some money along the way.
Right. Hopefully this deep dive gave you a good understanding of how it all works, and maybe even got you, thinking about giving it a try.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to see you out there flipping houses.
So now that you know a little more about it, what kind of property would you want to flip? And what are like your unique skills that could make you successful at this? Think about those things, and maybe, just maybe, one day we'll be talking about your house flipping success story.